Hey, welcome back. Um, I've been getting a lot of requests recently to come up with some dishes that are low in carbs, higher in protein, a little bit more on the healthier side. So I decided what I'm going to make today is a basically chicken cordon bleu. So chicken cordon bleu is a French dish. I know that because it says cordon bleu. Figured that out all on my own, so I don't even have to look that one up. But this is going to be my version of it. We're going to bake it. You can smoke it. You can wrap it in bacon, or you can bread it. I'm going to bread it with some panko and Italian breadcrumbs. I know I said low carb, but actually, when you're looking at it, the amount of carbs in it is much lower than you would get if you had like a full breading and it was kind of deep fried. So we're not going to do that. So we are going to bake it. We're going to basically oven fry, and that'll get us a little bit, on the healthier side. And then we're going to make ourselves a homemade Hollandaise sauce to put over top of it after it's baked. So we're going to go through the steps of making that. And that's pretty much the dish that we're going to do today. So what I'm doing, I'm using chicken thighs. Chicken thighs taste much better. The dark meat tastes much better than the white meat. A lot of people like the white meat, and you can use breast if you want. It's going to be more expensive, and you're going to have to do a little bit different technique on the deboning it and opening up that breast. You almost want to butterfly that breast. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically remove the skin and the bone from the chicken thigh here. And then what we'll do is instead of pounding it out, tenderizing it, we're going to use a pressure tenderizer that I have here. It's got like a million pins. You guys have seen this before. This is what I use when I'm marinating duck breast, but it's got a bunch of little needles in it. And these little needles make some nice pockets for us and help basically almost tenderize the meat for us. So I'm going to show you real quick, a quick and easy way. Have yourself a sharp knife. Knife skills are a little important here, so you want to be careful and make sure that your knife is sharp, A, and B, you know how to use it. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, you can buy chicken thighs that are already deboned and the skin removed. So chicken thighs are fairly simple to clean. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off, and I'm just going to kind of clean it back and get me an area to start to pull the skin. So I'm going to take some of this leftover skin here, and I'm going to have that as a little handle. And then what you can do is you can come up underneath of the thigh. And then when you come underneath the thigh, go ahead and take your knife, get up in there with the blade away from you, pull out. And you can use your fingers as well to make sure that you're pulling the skin away from the thigh. And as you see, I'm just going to go along here and just slowly pull that skin using the knife blade up against the skin to kind of just pull it right out of there. And it comes off fairly clean. So then what I'll do is I'll take that other half that I grabbed and create almost like a handle. Hold on to that handle. And now I'll take my blade and I'll get it along the meat edge. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of pull the skin, but I'm also going to work my blade so I can get that as much meat left on there as possible, but get the skin off. And there you go. And now the skin's removed there. Then you can take a look at the thigh. There's a little bit more skin that's usually left over here. You can just take your knife and get in there and kind of just clean that off. You don't have to get it all off, but I like to get it as clean as possible. So now what? You got your bone in here. What you want to do now is you want to take and make a mark right along top of the bone, making sure your fingers are away from the blade. And then what I do is I kind of like do this walking of the blade, I call it. And I'm pushing up against the bone, but I'm just going back and forth, almost like a saw. And as I'm doing it, I'm pushing the meat away from the bone. And I'm going to do that to both sides. Just kind of sawing it away. And then you get to the point where you have your bone visible. Get up under your bone, moving your fingers away from the knife blade, running the blade up along the bone and pull up. And that will get you your bone here. And then you can just simply peel it back. And then once you peel it back, you basically have your thigh like this with your bone out. You can then come in here and just go along the bone with your knife blade, making sure you have a sharp knife because a sharp knife is very important here. And then we'll just go ahead and clean around it. There's a little knuckle in here too on this leg bone. So you want to make sure you get that knuckle out of there. So that's what it should look like, nice and clean. And just a little tip, if you have dogs, Raw chicken bones are pretty good. I give them to my dogs all the time. It's cooked bones that get brittle, but if it's not cooked, you can give it to your dog, and it will not splinter as much as it would if you were to actually cook it and then give them the bone. Just a little tip there. So now I got my I got my thigh here now. I'm just going to feel with my fingers, make sure that I have no more bone left in it. I got a little piece right here, cartilage feels like, and I'm just going to go in and kind of take that right out of there, and it's gone. And that's it. That's how you do it. So I'll do it a little faster here without talking. Come in the back. I said I wouldn't talk, but I'm still talking. Come in the back, grab it. I got to create my little hinge. I'm just using my knife blade. Get up in there. I want to keep the meat and get rid of the skin. So I got my little hinge. Flip it back over. Take my fingers. Again, you don't need the knife for this part. You can just take your fingers and go right up underneath and kind of pull that right off of it. And then just come in here, off. And then, like I say, you clean up a little bit. I'm going to take my fingernails and kind of just like push that part out. And I'm going to come in here with the knife blade right along the edge of that, saving as much meat as possible, but getting that nasty, bad skin. Everybody loves the taste of skin, but it is so bad for you. You don't want to have it all the time. All right, let me just take the bone off. Again, cut along the top. Just kind of do that sawing effect along the bone with the tip of the blade. Get up in there with your fingers. You can feel where you can then poke underneath of the bone. Push it up. Fold it back. And again, cutting it around, making sure to get that knuckle out of there. Saving as much meat as possible. There you go. Easy as that. When we come back, we're going to have all of these cleaned and ready to go, and then we're going to go through the tenderizing process, and then we'll get into actually how we're going to make the chicken cordon bleu, and we'll go from there. So I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back. All right, so we've got all of our chicken thighs cleaned up now, and what I'm doing is I'm going to now look at them, and I'm going to almost even them out, kind of flatten them out, right? So I'm not truly butterflying because I'm not doing both sides, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for high spots, and I'm going to trim them down so it lays nice and flat for me, so I can really roll the cordon bleu when I make it. And then I also want it nice and flat when I start to tenderize. So I'm just kind of just very lightly just going in, and you're going to have that high spot on this back side of the thigh, and you just want to kind of cut it and roll it out. And then you're also feeling for anything left, like I got a little bone here, so we're going to get that out of there. See, when you look at the thigh, once you take that bone out, you're going to have a thin side, and then you're going to have a narrow center, and then you're going to have a high side on the back. The high side is what I'm cutting down, and almost like you would do if you're going to butterfly something. So I just kind of cut that down and fold it over so it gets nice and flat for me. Now I'm just going to lay them all out so they're close together and get ready to tenderize. Now when you tenderize, you want to put in some flavor when you're tenderizing, right? So what I'm going to do is just regular salt and pepper when I tenderize. But since obviously I've been touching chicken is when you're working with chicken, it's very important to keep a clean cooking surface and clean tools. You don't want to transfer any bacteria. So I'm going to wash up real quick, and then we're going to put some salt and pepper on, and we're going to start to tenderize. All right, so washed up. Got a new rag here. Rag I was using. We put for the wash. And now what we're going to do is get ourselves just regular salt and pepper. So I like pepper, so I'm really going to put some pepper on these guys. Pepper is a very good universal flavor agent. So we'll make sure we get pepper on each one. And we're going to be a little bit careful with the salt because we don't want to over salt. There is salt in the cheese and there's salt in the ham. So we don't want to go too crazy with the salt. All right. We're going to get out the marinator. Nice. Every time we push down, it puts about 20, I say that's more like 40 holes. Marination pockets, I call them. We're going to do it both ways. And then we'll come across this way. All right. Now what we did was we put that salt and pepper down, and then we put this marinator over top, and we actually pushed that salt and pepper down into these, what I call tenderizing marinating pockets that is created by this tool. So we're not done with it. And again, clean reasons when you're working with any kind of raw food, right? So this comes right apart for us, so we can go ahead and take it and get it right into the sink and then in the dishwasher. So we're going to go ahead and clean this up, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the next steps. I'm back. All right. So what I want to do is I want to get a big mixing bowl here, because before we throw them onto the baking sheet, I want to have a way to bread them. So we'll go ahead and we'll bread them in there. Let's see here. I'm going to get out some toothpicks just in case I need the toothpicks. Okay. Hopefully that's enough toothpicks. If not, we'll get some more. The magic of filming, we can edit later. All right. So what I'm going to do now is give myself some room. So I want to go ahead and just put these guys up here for right now. All right, and I'll take one. Now, the hard part about making chicken cordon bleu, especially when you got ham this thick, the hardest part is going to be keeping the cheese that you're using in without it pouring all out. And unfortunately, you're going to have some leakage. There's just nothing you can do about it. You can get slow melting cheese chunks, and you can use that. It'll help you. It's still going to melt, but through the cooking process, but it'll help a little bit. So for here, what we're going to do is we're just basically going to take our ham, put it on top of our marinated chicken. I'm going to take a piece of provolone here. This is thick cut provolone. We're going to put that down, and then we're going to put some Swiss on top. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to roll this, trying to keep it all together. And then we're gonna toothpick it together. And we got to push it down through there so it goes in both ends. And you get your toothpicks like kind of hanging out in the middle there. And that looks pretty good. Now, what you could do is if you were using a thinner ham, you could take your ham, like a lunch meat slice ham that's kind of squared off. You could take your ham and you could actually fold the cheese inside of the ham, and then go ahead and make, make the chicken roll just like you normally would. By folding the cheese inside of the ham, it will allow it to stay inside of it. Unfortunately, since the ham we have here is thick cut and it's from Easter, it's very difficult for me to kind of roll it in there to kind of keep it in place. So I know I'm going to have leakage. I'm going to kind of mash them together almost when I'm baking them, and I'm going to put the full side down, and that should allow a lot of the cheese to kind of stay. But I know I'm going to lose some. That's just the nature of the game here. So we'll just go ahead and keep doing this. We'll get some cheese. Again, we'll roll. What I may do is, now that I think about it, I may use a casserole dish to bake these in and pack them kind of tighter together. The reason I was thinking about going with the grated pan, because when I'm oven frying, it will actually allow the heat to kind of circulate around it. It gives it more real estate there to be able to do that, but I don't want to lose all of the cheese, and I want to have almost like a, when you scoop it out of there, you'll have like a cheesy bottom to kind of pull it up. So I'm probably just going to go ahead and put it into a baking dish. But we'll see when it's done. But be prepared if you're doing it like this. Be prepared to have leakage. Leakage is okay. I'm trying to roll it as tight as I can, and then go ahead and get that toothpick in there. And what's nice about this is really, this part of it here is almost carb free. You know, you got your ham, you got your chicken, you got your cheese. Not a lot of carbs there, so for all you folks that were asking for some carb-free stuff, this is for you. Also, another tip when you're making this dish, try to find yourself big thighs. The bigger your chicken thigh is, the easier it's going to be to stretch that thigh out and wrap it around everything. When you get those smaller ones, it's kind of difficult. So I do have some smaller ones here, so this kind of is what it is. We deal with what we got. I'm trying to use all leftovers and stuff that you already have in the house to make this dish. So that's why I didn't really get the correct size ham. And we're going to take these. The reason why I'm kind of poking these up through the top here is I want to be able to see them when it's done. So before I serve, I'm going to take out the toothpicks. And just remember how many toothpicks you put in there. I'm doing 2 per roll here, so I know that's 2 toothpicks that I got to go ahead and go in there and get out before I serve it. Welcome back. Okay, now we are going to bread. So we've got all of our chicken wrapped and ready to go. So now what it's time for us to do is bread this, and we're going to bread it in a way that we can basically oven fry it. They say oven fry, but you're really not frying. You're just oven baking it. But you can also put these into an air fryer. That'll give you a real nice crust too. I have a convection oven, so I'm going to go ahead and set it at 350, turn on the convection, and that'll probably cook for about 40 minutes. But what I'm doing, I'm putting it into a casserole dish. So any leakage I get stays in the casserole dish. So when you scoop it out, you're going to get all that cheese that had leaked out right underneath of it. So we really don't have to worry too much about that leakage. If we were air frying it up in the air in a basket, we would have a problem with leakage, or if we were, say, smoking it in the smoker. So if we were going to smoke this in the smoker, I would wrap this in bacon. I would wrap my edges, and then I would wrap it around this way. So you would take a piece of thick cut bacon and wrap around like this. You would not use toothpicks. So you wrap it like this with bacon, and then you wrap it like this with another slice or 2 of bacon, and that'll create a cocoon. So you can then put that in your smoker and you'll have very minimum leakage at that point because that bacon, that thick cut bacon on the edges will keep it all that cheese inside there. So this dish can be either smoked, air fried, or baked. So I'm going to go ahead and get the oven turned on, and we're going to go from there, and we're going to start going. I'm going to wash my hands though because I just picked up that meat, so I got to wash my hands before I touch the oven. Okay, we'll set the oven to 350 degrees and turn on convection. We're going to cook in the middle of the oven, so that looks good. Okay, so now this is my mixture, my famous mixture. This is what I like to use. Whenever I use breadcrumbs, I take regular Italian seasoned breadcrumbs and then panko breadcrumbs, half and half mixture. And that gives me a real nice breading. Now, we're going to put some Parmesan cheese in this, and it's going to be pretty much at least half of what I put in there with the breadcrumbs, because I really want this to be Parmesan crusted. So that looks good. It's about a 50-50 mix between the panko breadcrumbs, and this cheese. And now I'm just going to mix this together, crushing any of the, you get those little balls of cheese from the Parmesan, so I'm just going to crush them up and fully integrate this. All right, that looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to melt down 2 sticks of butter in the microwave, and then I'm going to add some garlic seasoning to them because I want a garlic butter. So I'm going to go ahead and melt that down real quick. Now you can use a regular garlic butter mixture you can buy in the food store. You know, that'll work just fine. You don't have to use the regular butter and then add your own garlic, but it took about 1 minute to melt that down, by the way, if you're wondering, in the microwave. It doesn't take long at all. So I've got regular, this is garlic powder, not garlic salt. The butter already has salt in it. If you're using unsalted butter, then you could use garlic salt. Go ahead and get that garlic powder in there. I'd say that's about 3/4 of a teaspoon. I do it to taste. Let's put that butter in there. We got a little chunk of butter that didn't melt. I'm hoping that it'll melt down once I start mixing this around. So as you can see now, that chunk of butter did melt down. I do have some garlic that's just kind of being stubborn there, so we're going to keep mixing it. It looks good. All right. So now what we'll do, we'll take our breadcrumbs, take our butter mixture. All right. We're going to take our chicken, kind of roll it in the butter, garlic butter mixture. Take it out with the fork, drop it in, and roll it around in the breadcrumbs, and then just kind of take your hand and just get that breadcrumbs all over that. Get both sides, and as you see, that's what you got, and then we'll put it in there. And we're just going to repeat the process until we get them all breaded. We'll do 2 at a time, a little faster. Again, like I was saying earlier, if you're looking for a more carb-free, completely carb-free, you can go ahead and wrap them in bacon and skip the breadcrumbs and go right to the smoker. If you don't have a smoker, I wouldn't recommend wrapping them in bacon and baking them in your oven. The bacon generates a lot of grease, obviously, which falls down onto the baking pan and smokes. So you will smoke your house up if you try to wrap these in bacon and cook them in your oven inside. So you definitely want to do that in a smoker outside. So I was just having a conversation with my sous chef, and it's not a chef whose name's Sue. It's the sous chef is the assistant chef. I'm the chef, so it says the chef. So my sous chef kind of backs me up, and we collaborate. but there's no doubt about it who's in charge. Chef. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to get a smaller, when we go to break, I'm going to get a smaller baking dish here because I really want these tight together. I don't want them to kind of expand out all over the place. So through the magic of cameras, when we come back, they're going to be in a smaller dish magic. So we'll be right back. I'm going to clean up a little bit and we'll get ready to put them in the oven. All right, welcome back. As I promised, through the magic of television, we have shrunk down the baking dish. It's magic. Okay, so we're nice and tight in here now. So any leakage I get is going to stay in the vessel, and when I scoop them out, we're going to be good to go. What you want to do is make sure you remember where your toothpicks are, and you know that you got 2 in each one. So I'll be able to do that as soon as they come out of the oven and cool for a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and put these in the oven now for about 40 to 45 minutes. And then we'll go ahead and check the temperature. You want to cook these to an internal temperature of at least 160 degrees. Here we go. All right. Now, you are going to now see my another no longer super secret recipe, but it's a homemade hollandaise sauce. I learned how to make it years ago. It's something I was taught. I was not taught by my grandmother actually on this one. This was a one of the cooking classes I went to. I remember learning how to make a hollandaise sauce. Hollandaise sauce is it's an emulsification, right? So when you emulsify, you're taking two liquids and trying to combine them that generally don't combine well together. So like oil and water, right? Oil and water, the oil will float on the water. So when you emulsify, what you're doing is you're basically combining the two liquids together through using constant movement from a blender. That's the way I'm going to emulsify this hollandaise sauce that we're going to make here. Hollandaise sauce can be used on multiple things. It's you can season it with different seasonings. It'll take them well. You can put some garlic powder in it, onion powder, things like that to get you different profiles, flavor profiles. But for this, we're going to make it the old-fashioned way, which is going to be our lemon juice, ground mustard, butter, egg yolks. Make sure your egg yolks, or your eggs, should I say, are at room temperature. And then what we're going to do is we're going to separate the white from the yolk, and go ahead and mix this up for you. So let me go ahead and get a bowl, and I'll walk through how you do this. So we got this little handy dandy thing we're going to try out today. This is an egg yolk separator, egg white separator. You could do it the old-fashioned way, which is crack the shell in the middle, go shell to shell to shell, or we can do it this way. So we're going to go ahead and give this one a shot. These are my fresh farm eggs. My chickens laid them yesterday. All right, looking good so far. That will happen. They may break. If it does, just grab it and get it over quickly. So this recipe calls for six yolks. And then we're going to do 2 tablespoons of the lemon juice. And then we're going to do, I have notes here because I told you it's been a while since I made this. We have, we're going to do 1 teaspoon, 1 total teaspoon of the mustard powder. And then it's actually going to be a cup of butter. Those of you that want to know, 2 full sticks is going to give you 1 cup. I believe it even says it on there. Yeah. 1 stick is half a cup, so 2 sticks will give you 1 cup. That's how that works. All right. Gotta help it along. Now, if you're like me and you don't like to waste stuff, go ahead and save your egg whites for an omelet or something. You can put them into a little cup and then go ahead and put them in the fridge. They'll last a couple of days in the fridge. Just make sure you seal up the container that you put them in real good. And those egg whites will be good for you. Good to go to make a nice spinach omelet. Spinach, feta, a little bit of butter. Be perfect. All right, so we're done with that. We'll grab those egg whites later. I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of pre-mix these just a little. Go ahead and get the blender ready. So what we're doing is we're not cooking the egg yolks yet. We're going to emulsify them with the butter. And we're going to do that without cooking, because if I tried to do this on the stove, I mean, there is a way to do it. You could do what we call a double pot method, which is basically you take a pot of water, you boil the pot of water, and then you put another pot on top of that. Okay, and then you can put your yolk in there and start to slowly keep spinning and spinning and spinning, because you don't want to get the egg to where the egg actually scrambles, because that's when you have a problem. So we don't want to do that. So that's why I like to do it this way. This is cold fusion. I think that's a nuclear term too. But I'm basically doing it without cooking it. What I'll do is I'll warm this later after it's emulsified, and then I'll be able to warm it up in a microwave and give it a little stir, and then that'll be good to go. All right, so now we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. What I want to do is I want to get my butter going. So I want to melt my butter, have my butter melted and ready and kind of almost cooled a little bit. When I'm using butter that is still warm, it's actually cooking the egg yolks a little bit too. So that's actually good for us, right? All right, so now we want to do 1 teaspoon of the powder. Let's get ourselves a teaspoon here. 1 teaspoon of the mustard powder here. 1 teaspoon. Good to go. Just going to get a fork on this butter here. Make sure that I got no big chunks. What you want to do now is turn your blender onto a medium speed. Note here that I'm using a high performance blender, so it generates a lot of heat while it's mixing. The key is to slowly add the butter to the egg yolks without scrambling the eggs. If you were to add all the butter in at once and just turn the blender on, it would make almost like a scrambled egg mix, and that's the opposite of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to emulsify the liquids. We're combining 2 liquids that generally do not combine well together. This is accomplished by using a medium speed on the blender and slowly mixing in the butter as you go. Once you've added all of the butter, you can let the blender run for an additional minute and a half until you have the right consistency that you're looking for. So shut it off, and you see how I got my steam coming out of there? Now I know my egg is cooked. So now I'll take my emulsification, and this is your Hollandaise sauce. This will go on top of the chicken cordon bleu when you serve it. It's a nice complement to the cheese. Try to get it all out of there. There you go. There's your Hollandaise sauce. Now this will stay together. It shouldn't separate on you as long as you blended it correctly. It'll look just like this. And you warm it back up in a microwave or something right before you're ready to serve. What you want to do is that little ladle or something, you can ladle it right over top of the piece of meat. This is good for asparagus, put it on top of eggs, like eggs Benedict or something. This is the same hollandaise sauce that's used for eggs Benedict, asparagus, things like that. It is a little tricky to make. You gotta, have to have done it a few times, so you may have an issue the first time you make it, but you'll catch on quick. But that's how we do it. It's delish. Okay, welcome back. It's been about 50 minutes now that these have been in the oven, so I'm going to go ahead and take them out of the oven here. There we go. See, as you see, we did lose cheese like I expected, but that's a good thing because we used the right dish. So now basically what we have here is our homemade chicken cordon bleu, and we'll have our basically our hollandaise sauce that when I'm ready to serve this, I'm going to go ahead and pour the hollandaise sauce over the top, 2 layers, sprinkle some Parmesan Romano cheese on top, and that's how you'll plate it. A good vegetable for the side of this would probably be asparagus, because you can put the hollandaise sauce on the asparagus as well. But there you have it, folks. Jersey Joe style chicken cordon bleu. Remember, say a prayer before every meal, thanking the Almighty for what He does for each and every one of us and what Jesus has done for us. Keep the faith, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, as well as follow us on Facebook at Jersey Joe Conjemi.